So very good morning, my dear students. So this is the third class of the basic microbiology and the phytopathology. In this today's class, we are going to continue with the endospore formation in bacteria and the biological nitrogen fixation. Right, in the last class, we were discussing what are the basic characters of the bacteria and how you can classify the bacteria according to the size and the shape, so number of flagella produced. Right, and also the colony morphology and the colony color. Right, so and thereafter we started to study the growth and reproduction of the bacteria. Normally bacteria shows the binary fission as the reproductive mode, and then the binary fission process, so the growth curve will be a sigmoid curve. It has 4 phases. Today we are going to continue the endospore formation in the bacteria. I already informed and explained you there are certain bacteria groups. They are forming spores, we call it as an endospores, to survive in the harsh environmental conditions. This endospore, so the endospores are the single cell of the bacteria. It's a conversion into spores. Right, conversion into spores. There are the 6 or 7 major steps involved in the formation of the endospore. So commonly we are dividing that one into 4 major headings: nuclear division and the formation of the septum, and for production of the spore and the spore maturation. So there are 4 under the 4 heading. There are 6 or 7 steps, right, up to 8 steps. So you can study. The first step is the bacteria. So you all know the bacteria cells, you cannot expect any membrane bounded organelles. So therefore the nucleus containing the DNA will replicate at first. The replication of the DNA. Once the DNA is replicated, so then the DNA will move along the long axis of the cells, and it will go to the polar, right, to the side of the cells. Once it has reached the side, then cytoplasmic membrane evaginations will happen. So due to this evagination, like binary fission, right, evaginations, that it will form a spore, or like we call it as a septum, right? Maybe the septum and the spore formations. Once it has cytoplasmic membrane, cytoplasm is divided into 2. So then the one of the 2 division will move towards the polar region. So the cytoplasmic membrane grows and engulfs the 4 spores. Here the cytoplasmic membrane grows further, and it is going to engulf. It is going to engulf the 4 spore within the second membrane. By using this second membrane, it will engulf. Here you can see it's fully engulfed, right? Fully engulfed, and this vegetative DNA will disintegrate, right? Will disintegrates. So once it has engulfed here, around the cytoplasm, the additional elements like the calcium and diclonic acid will happen to harden this membrane, right? Harden the membrane and form the coat around that cytoplasmic membrane and around the DNA. We call it as a spore coat. This deposition of the calcium and dipiclonic acid further harden the spore coat. So therefore this spore coat is showing the resistance, highly resistant to heat and chemicals. Highly resistant to heat and chemical. So thereafter it forms the outer coat. It forms an outer coat. So once it has fully formed that endospore, this endospore releases will happen by breakage of this primary cytoplasm of the mother cell. This is mother, this is a spore. Right. So this is entire process. It can take nearly about 72 hours, the formation of the endospore. So when it forms the endospore is if the condition is not suitable, so therefore to hop up with these harsh environmental conditions, these bacterial cells form the endospore. But it is not normal case. It's in rare cases it forms, but not all the bacteria. Some of the bacteria from the bacillus groups, they are forming this endospore, right? So this is there are 8 steps. Last steps is the releasing. For normally 7 steps we are discussing under the 4 major title: nuclear division, formation of the septum, and production of the 4 spores and spore maturation, right? For maturation. So then we will move to the what are the abiotic factors influences the bacteria growth, reproduction, and the survival. You all know, and I already explained that the bacteria can survive in wide range of environmental conditions. So it can survive in even the very cold temperature and up to the hot temperature it can survive. So normally the bacteria is important for the agriculture. So they can able to survive under 0 degrees Celsius to 85 degrees Celsius. Exceptional cases, some bacteria, it can even survive more than that. I already told you some bacteria we are extracting these polymerase enzymes for the molecular studies. These are living in even high temperature conditions. That's what we are extracting these polymerase enzyme from these bacteria to cut the DNAs, because for under thermocycle and the PCR condition, we are maintaining temperature up to 95 degrees Celsius. So this bacteria should survive. So enzyme should not degrade, right? So therefore we are selecting that enzymes. But many bacteria can survive the temperature range of 0 to 85 degrees Celsius. But it depends on the species, right? So whether they are, so according to the temperature ranges it can survive, we are classifying these bacteria into 3 different groups. One is we call it as a psychrophilic, other one is we call it as a mesophilic, other one is we call it as a thermophilic. The psychrophilic bacteria can be able to survive from the 0 degree to 30 degrees Celsius with an optimum temperature condition of 15 degrees Celsius. That is we call it as a psychrophilic bacteria. So normally whatever the bacteria we are expecting the causing diseases or starting decomposition of the organic material in the very wet conditions, these bacteria can work. But certain bacterial group can work in the temperature range of 30 to 50 degrees Celsius, but it can able to survive into less than 25 degrees Celsius, so it can work up to 18 to 45 degrees Celsius in optimum conditions, but it can survive up to the temperature range of 50 degrees Celsius. We call it as a mesophilic bacteria. These mesophilic bacteria commonly we are using for the many food industries as well as this the secondary decomposition of this organic matter. Once the psychrophilic microorganisms work, it will produce more heat. So thereafter this organism cannot survive. Another group of microorganisms will work. These are called as a mesophilic microorganism. This microorganic decomposition also producing heat. Then these microorganisms will die. Another group will work. We call it as a thermophilic microorganisms. So thermophilic base, for example, is a Methanococcus. It can survive in high temperature conditions. Right, so these thermophilic temperature microorganisms, these thermophilic bacteria can survive up to 60 to 93 degrees Celsius. 60 to 93 degrees Celsius. This third process of the organic matter decomposition, these bacteria will work. This bacteria will work. But the minimum and optimum temperature of this bacteria may be 25 to optimum may be 55 degrees Celsius. This is a temperature. So this is an indispensable factor for the survival and growth, reproduction of the survival of these bacteria. The second group of the abiotic factors we call it as a moisture. Moisture in the form of rainfall or in the form of RH. So they are influencing the survival and reproduction of these bacteria. So bacteria are more aquatic than the terrestrial. Many bacteria you can expect in aquatic region than the terrestrial. So can survive in the presence of the high percentage of water. They can survive. But normally for the bacteria, if the bacteria want to multiply, it expects to maintain the moisture above 60 degrees, 60% of RH to 80 to 90% of RH. So that it can survive well. This bacteria is surviving under terrestrial or solid culture. Third factor is the light, right? So ordinary visible light does not affect the bacterial activity. Normally in the visible ranges, but other bacteria are survival in the visible light, it will not harm. But certain light waves, so normally the UV infrared lights, so they can able to kill these bacteria, even they can deactivate these bacterial spores, so kill the bacterial spores. So that's what we are using these rays for the surface sterilization of these atmospheric conditions we are using. So that's what we call it as, and light is also indispensable. Certain bacteria will not tolerate even the ordinary light range. They prefer the dark. That type of bacteria normally we are cultivating under the dark conditions. And the pressure, another factor is the pressure. Ordinary mechanical pressure cannot affect. So normally the bacteria can survive under culture condition, even in which pressure condition the humans are living, plants are living, these bacteria can also survive on that pressure conditions. But the principle of osmosis is the best used to pressure for destruction of the bacteria. That's what we are using, the reverse osmosis, to increase the pressure and remove these bacteria and other things to damage this semi-permeable membrane, or the principle we are using for the reverse osmosis to clean the bacteria or filtrate the bacteria by using the pressures. And hydrogen ion concentration, we are calling it as a pH. Normally bacteria can survive in the acid pH, but some bacteria, when it can go up to the 9, pH of 9, slightly alkaline conditions, but mainly many bacteria prefer to live in acid conditions. That's what we are surviving. For example, you would have studied in the 2-1 Bt toxin. The Bt toxin can work in the acid pH. No, it can break the membrane in the alkaline pH, not in acid pH. That's what here we are surviving, because gut is an acid pH. Insect gut is an alkaline pH. That's what the Bt membrane, Bt toxin membrane will not be demolished, right? It will not cause a harm to the human being. So this is the abiotic factors influencing the growth and survival of the bacteria. This is the end of the bacteria. So in the bacteria, we have studied the sizes, shape, and classification of the bacteria, and biotic, abiotic factors influencing the bacteria, survival, growth, survival, and reproductions. Right? So next section, we are moving in the by help of bacteria as an application of the bacteria. We call it as a nitrogen fixation. For the importance of the agriculture is depend on the how much amount of nitrogen is used, because these are indispensable major element for the plant growth and reproduction, mainly growth, and also for the as a reproductive output we are getting is nitrogen as a stored protein. So nitrogen fixation. So in the nitrogen cycle, you would have studied in the even secondary schools and even advanced levels. Nitrogen fixations you can divide into non-biological nitrogen fixation and biological nitrogen fixation. Non-biological nitrogen fixation may be industrial nitrogen production, industrial ammonia production, and lightning. So mainly lightning. So at the time of rainy season, lightning also able to fix the conversion of these atmospheric nitrogen into biological nitrogen fixation, symbiotic and non-symbiotic organisms, especially bacteria. Symbiotic bacteria and non-symbiotic bacteria involving in the fixation of these atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. That is, we call it as a biological nitrogen fixation. Symbiotic nitrogen fixation you can divide into legume and non-legume symbiotic association. Right? Why we are taking the nitrogen fixation here is because if an organism, microorganism, especially a bacteria, can able to fix the tremendous and enough amount of nitrogen for the crop production, why we want to produce these artificial nitrogen, non-biological forms of nitrogen, right? So the application of this microorganism in the one of the important application of the microorganism in the agriculture is to utilize this microorganism to promote the agriculture, right? And to minimize the environmental pollution. This biological nitrogen fixation in our target, so that's what we are going to use the microorganism and how we can how microorganisms, this bacteria fix and how they can show the association with the crop. So biological nitrogen, so ammonia, biological nitrogen accounts for an estimated of 170 into 10 to the power 9 kilogram of ammonia every year. From the nitrogen, these microorganisms through the biological nitrogen fixation, 170 into 10 to the power 9 kilogram. Imagine how much of nitrogen is fixed into the soil or in the crop soil. But human industrial Haber-Bosch, you all know, you would have studied maybe in the advanced level, Haber-Bosch process, industrial production of this ammonia. So we can able to produce 80 into 10 to the power 9 kilogram ammonia yearly. Our production is this much. Microorganism production is this much. You see it is double. Even if this produce double, but we are not utilizing this in a better way. That's what even half of these ammonia produced by these industrialists enough and abundance for the agriculture. That's what farmers are indiscriminately using everywhere, applying, even government also giving subsidy. Everywhere farmers using these industrial and inorganic fertilizers, ammonia fertilizers. That's harm. That's what we are facing this tremendous pollution. So human health hazards. We have CKDU is one of the causes. It's created also heavy metal associated with these fertilizers. Right? So this through the industrial production of the ammonia, we are using iron as a catalyst to break this triple bond of the nitrogen. Nitrogen NTN is a triple bond under high atmospheric pressure. So nearly about 500 atm and high temperature, 450 degrees Celsius. This is an industrial production. At that condition only, you can reduce the ammonia into NH3. But simply without this technique, how this microorganism fix this nitrogen? This is a question. Even for the production of the 1 kilogram of ammonia, we need nearly about 6 liters of crude oil. You see, the burning of the crude oil, how much pollution, carbon dioxide released into the environment, how much of pressure and the atmospheric temperature, we are producing these pollutions. And also how much cost, but government is giving subsidy. That's what we are getting in lower prices. For the production of the ammonia, it's cost 5 to 6 times more than the whatever the ammonia enjoyed by the farmers in the subsidy scheme. Right? In these extreme reaction conditions, consume high amount of energy each year, considering the scale at NH3 is produced industrially. You see how much of energy, time, cost is wasted. Right? Wasted. So for your dreams should do. So because nitrogen is abundant in the environment, it's 78% of it. Without any pressure, without any catalyst, if this microorganism able to produce, so why we should not utilize these microbial or microorganism produce nitrogen for the entire agriculture? And can we stop this industrial ammonia production way in long-term basis? That is the way we should think. And if a way could found that transfer the capacity of nitrogen fixation by symbiotic organism to associated with another crops. Normally, the symbiotic microorganism associated with the legumes. If we are transferring the gene, right, gene for useful for the host microorganism recognized. Once a successful host microorganism recognized, only the symbiotic association can help. So if by using these bio and molecular technologies, if we transferring that host gene, especially we call it as a NIF gene, right? We call it as a NIF gene, and nodulation gene and NIF gene present in the microorganism and the host. If we are transferring a way, then we can attract this association in the other important cereal crops, corn and wheat and paddy, and we can reduce, we can even stop industrial nitrogen production in future. Right? So because of its current and potential economic importance, interaction between the rhizobia and leguminous plants have been intensively studied. So we have studied well how this association is happening. But if the cell-cell communication between the host and microbes is well identified, then we can try to modify and utilize this communication and other biotechnological tools to transfer these genes into the other non-leguminous crops. So we will go study detailing the biological nitrogen fixation. So biological nitrogen fixation is the conversion of this nitrogen gas into ammonia in the presence, right? Availability in the presence of these, the few bacteria associated with the crop or bacteria living free. That's what we call it as in biological nitrogen. The availability of the fixed nitrogen often factor most limiting to the plant growth. So normally, how much of nitrogen, fixed nitrogen, is going to utilize for the plant growth? It's a question, right? It's a question. So first attempt to increase the forest growth through the nitrogen fixation in Lithuania, in India, 1894, the lupin species, right? Increase the forest growth through the nitrogen fixation. So if they started in 1894, why it is not success now? Right? Because of the availability of cheap sources of industrial products, right? So that's what we are facing, this much of environmental. This biological nitrogen fixation, how it is there in the natural and agricultural ecosystems. So in the agricultural ecosystem, there are two different categories, and crop and pasture and fodder. The crop plants, you all know the certain legume rhizobia association, azolla cyanobacteria association, cereal associative non-leguminous bacteria associations, and some are free living cyanobacteria, heterotrophic bacteria, autotrophic bacteria. Even in the pasture and fodder, legume rhizobia, cereal associated bacteria, and free living bacteria, the natural ecosystem, so there are a lot of azolla, anabina complexes available. So these all systems are working to fix the nitrogen, biological nitrogen, right? Biological nitrogen. So that's what, so earlier agriculture system, after the crop cultivation of the main crops, they started to rotate with these leguminous crops to fix the nitrogen continuously, to refill whatever the nitrogen used from the previous cultivation. But now we are not following that one. Green manure application, are we doing that one? So are we doing to rotate this fellow crops by using this nitrogen fixation? Even if that's what we are facing, that how government banned that green gram and black gram. Now how much of price is because our people are not producing this one. That's what agricultural land is going barren, non-fertile. After the main cultivation, they are using the industrially produced nitrogen. Thereafter, they are not growing anything. Again, for the main cultivation, they are using the intensive cultivation of the only major crops. We are not even considering these important leguminous crops, even for the soil fertility improvement or for the additional sources of income for the farmers or even protein supplements. Right? So the ecological nitrogen fixation, there are three different categories: the symbiosis, association, freely. From this one, right? From this one, you can do only 3 categories. This one, symbiosis, association, free living. So estimated nitrogen fixation by symbiosis is nearly about 550 to 400 kilogram, but average is right 50 to 400 kilogram nitrogen hectare per hectare per year. In association 10 to 200. Free living 1 to 2 in heterotrophs, autotrophs 10 to 80. So if this organism, 3 types of organism can be utilized in a way in agricultural land, then we need not to use this industrial ammonia, right? Industrial ammonia. In this forthcoming section, we are going to study symbiotic nitrogen fixation in the legumes. Symbiotic nitrogen fixation in the legumes. So in the forest ecosystem also you can find these 3 types of nitrogen fixation: cyanobacteria, heterotrophic bacteria, and symbiotic bacteria. And these examples how these can convert this nitrogen and how they can rapidly converting the oxygen to carbon dioxide through the respiration. Right? Enzymology of the symbiotic nitrogen. The enzyme, so I told you for the biological nitrogen fixation, symbiotic biological nitrogen fixation, there is a need of association between the bacteria, symbiotic bacteria, and the host leguminous crop. The symbiotic relationship means both are getting benefits. Both are symbiosis mean it's a friends. Both are getting benefit. To get the benefit, the plant is giving some sugars, photosynthetic products to the bacteria. So bacteria is fixing nitrogen to the plant, needed for the plant. So both are benefiting. Right? How this association is working is because of this, the bacteria having certain enzymes. Right? Enzymes. So they don't have any room to utilize this enzyme to convert this atmospheric nitrogen into ammonia. Therefore, they are using the plant roots and modify the plant roots in a chamber. So where this oxygen cannot be available, that's what they can able to convert. Otherwise, if the oxygen is present, it will not convert. So the enzymes will not work, or oxygen will not be, the nitrogen will not be fixed, because these in the bacteria, right? In the bacteria, they have certain agents, like that we call it as an these rhizobium bacteria. They having this hemoglobin, like whatever the hemoglobin is carrying oxygen here. So they are also having this hemoglobin like coloring agents. This is the substance is consisting of helping for the conversion of the producing the oxygen free conditions. This is the immunoglobulin present in these rhizobium bacteria prevent the oxygen contamination in the availability of the oxygen in the chamber. Right? This rhizobia fix a nitrogen in symbiotic association with the legume plants, because this rhizobia fix a nitrogen plant and provides a rhizobia and the carbon substrates for the photosynthetic product from the plant is giving to this bacteria to fix the atmospheric nitrogens. They require the enzymes. We call it as a nitrogenase. So in the nitrogenase enzymes, instead of nitrogen enzymes, we cannot produce. That's what we are using the Fe catalyze to break this N triple bond. But bacteria using this symbiotic bacteria, they are having an enzyme, we call it as a nitrogenase. Instead of ferredoxin, an ATP, oxygen-free conditions regularly controls the ADP inhibits and NH4 4+ inhibits expression of the NIF gene, right? So for the NIF gene present, normally in the bacteria you can find there are two genes involved here. One is we call it as a NIF gene present in the Rhizobium bacteria. Other one is we call it as a nodulation gene present in the Rhizobium, right? So this gene concept of these two organisms helping for the fixation of the nitrogen, right? For the working of this nitrogenase enzyme, it need ATP, but it need oxygen-free conditions, right? Oxygen-free condition. It need ATP and it need oxygen-free condition. That's what this organism use plant roots and modifying the plant roots as a nodule, right? Nodule. How this N2 plus 3H2 is 2NH3. This is a reaction. This reaction can happen even in the high atmospheric temperature, high atmospheric pressure and high temperature in the artificial ammonia production. But in the presence of the nitrogenase or in the absence of the oxygen, so it can convert into N2 into 3H2 into 3NH3. That's what is. So that is a simple technology used by this microorganism, but it need more ATP. So nearly 16 moles of ATP is used for reduce the N2 into NH3. This ATP is given by photosynthetic product from the plants, root exudates, right? Root exudate. So because it's a triple bond, to break the triple bond, it needs energy. This is the biological nitrogen fixation equation. Nitrogen plus 8 flavodoxine, that is we call it as a NIF gene, right? So NIF gene sensing chemicals. Flavodoxine is a presence of the plant exudates, 8 flavodoxine plus 8H plus into 16 milligram, so 15 megagram ATP, 16 moles, right? ATP plus 18 H2O, it will produce 2 NH4 plus. But these are renewed, you see, these are renewed. So only N2 plus H2O, it's NH3 is the reaction, but others are prerequisite, flavodoxine and ATP. So ATP is, ATP also used, ATP also used. So only N2 and ATP and water, other conditions are present, nitrogenase enzyme and flavodoxine. So they can able to produce 2 molecules of ammonia, right? 2 molecules of ammonia. So why should nitrogenase need ATP? That's the question that I told you, right? For the triple bond to break activation barrier of the breaking end triple bond, it needs 16 ATP. So these are thermodynamically favorable. So N2 reduction to ammonia is thermodynamically favorable, right? So that's if in high temperature, it not need energy. But if it is not the high temperature, then it needs energy. In the bacteria organism, they are not working under high temp. Therefore, it need ATP for the activation energy. So that as an activation energy. You hear the legumes, they are using the plants. Legumes are giving the rhizobia, this, I told you, photosynthetic products. Then rhizobia is giving the fixed nitrogen into legume. This is the symbiotic relationship between the legumes and the rhizobium bacteria. These are the legume nodules. There are 2 types of nodules are there. So 2 nodules is there, we call it as a knots. This is produced by the nematode. This is nodule. So you should be very careful. So nodules are reddish color because of these leg hemoglobin. I told you hemoglobin is there. This hemoglobin is maintained in oxygen-free conditions. Otherwise, this ammonia, nitrogen will not convert it into ammonia, right? So the leg hemoglobin present in the nodules, that's what it is giving the reddish color, like our blood, right? Right, our blood. So Rhizobium leguminosarum, we call it as a why we call it as a leguminosarum? It's a leguminous crops. right? So pink color is leg hemoglobin, a protein that carries oxygen to the bacteroids. For the survival of the bacteria, it needs oxygen. But for the fixation of the ammonia, it not need. How it can maintain the condition? This condition is so because of this modified chamber, we call it as a modified chamber, we call it as a nodule. This is a nodule, right, present. If you are pulling out of any legume crops, green gram, black gram, anything, you can see this type of nodules. Very spongy. It is there and attached very loosely with the soil, rootlets. And also it reddish color. It always there in the one side. But if root node nematode galls are, it is inside the root. It is not detachable. It is not symmetry. It's a symmetry. Symmetry. But it is not symmetric. Right? So that is a basic identification of the galls and the knots. Right? Galls and the knots. So inside the root, right? So nodules. This is we are cutting out the nodules. What is happening? Because root nodule legume interactions and its physiology is important to understand how nitrogen is fixed, because in industrial condition we are giving this high temperature and atmospheric condition, but in the nodules is formed, how it is easily fixed nitrogen. For that you need this physiology. You see, this is the rootlets. The rootlets. So this is a nodule. In the nodules, this is an external cord. This is a vascular tissues of these plants. It's an endodermis. And this here, this is bacteroid, and this is hemoglobin. That is we call it as a reddish color. Mature zone, high nitrogen fixation ability here. This is low nitrogen fixation ability. This is also sense low zero nitrogen fixation ability, because in these areas you can find this high amount of oxygen, and also bacteria cell is here. NIF gene is present here. So therefore high nitrogen ability, right? High nitrogen ability where this NIF gene is present. So this nodulation process, there are 6 to 8 steps are there, right? One, so bacteria is normally there in the soil. If you have planted a legume, so once the legume signal should receive by the bacteria, the signals attract the bacteria will come here and it will produce certain recognition factor. This recognition factor modify the root in a way to form the galls. This is an entire process. We call it as these are the steps: main chemical recognition, root hair curling, formation of the infection thread, infection root of the rhizobia, and cortical cell division, and finally nitrogen fixation. These steps are shown in here in this picture clearly, right? In this clearly, and explanations are there in the forthcoming slides, but I will not explain that. I will explain with the help of this diagram. Okay, the first, this is a plant. You have sown the seed. Once you have sown the seed, your plant will grow as a seedling. While these seedlings are growing, it will produce tremendous amount of root exudates. Right? In the root zone, you can find the root exudates. The root zone we call it as, and there are different zones are there, rhizosphere and phyllosphere. The rhizospheric region, there are a lot of root exudates, mean sugars, carbohydrates. These sugars may be contain certain, we call it as riboflavinoids, riboflavin, amylopropin, maltoses, sugars, anything there. This will attract these rhizobium bacteria present in the soil. As these bacteria, so they have the flagella. This flagella will receive the signal, we call it as through the hemosensory mechanism. They will receive the signals. Okay, root hair exudates are there. If these root hair exudates are there, this will induce this bacteria to move towards this root hairs. Where are these exudates are there? Mainly riboflavin, right? Flavonoid. We call it as flavonoids. So riboflavins will attract this rhizobium bacteria. Then bacteria will go there. So there, and in the root, they will start to it will sense the host tissues by using that flagella. I told you, but one student asked a question, what is the purpose of flagella? One is for the mobile, otherwise it's a sensation, right? The root hairs, it will be sensed by these flagella. Once the flagella is sensed, these flavonoids, so there it will produce the host pathogen. It means like a host microorganism interaction, communication. This communication is successful, then this bacteria will produce an infection threat. The bacteria will produce infection threat. This infection threat try to curl these root hairs. So root hairs will keep bent down and it try to curl. If this bacteria, if this root hairs is to curl in between these root hairs, this bacteria will be trapped. Right? Bacteria will be trapped. So then the bacteria will penetrate. Right? It will penetrate and will transfer its DNA. It will penetrate and it will transfer the DNA. Then once this penetrated into epidermal cells and then cortical cells, and finally in the cortical cells, it will try to control this root in that area. Right? So that's what this is modified into, is curling, it modified into as a gall. Modifying as a gall. This bacteria finally from the root hairs will reach its cortical cells here. This cortical cells bacteria gene will be activated because as a NIF genes. The NIF gene activated this producing enzyme, this modification of these cortical cells, cortex area, right? Cortex area is modification because this bacteria producing from tremendous amount of enzyme. This enzyme contains indole acetic acid and indole butyric acid. This indole acetic acid and butyric acid, it induces the plant cells to modify and enlarge, multiply and enlarge. That's what you would have studied in the plant physiology, right? Plant physiology means if the hormone is present, the plant cell will grow and enlarge, right? That's how it's modified into form a gall. Now this bacteria cells, DNA, it is there in the root cells. It is working independently. It is working independently. So this, then if the bacteria is there, it will produce from so many amount of leg hemoglobin around the root zone. Therefore, this root zone is showing the reddish color. This gall is showing that reddish color. Not we call it as a gall form. Legume gall, nodules. Nodule, we call it as a nodules. The reddish color. Right? For the survival of this bacteria, bacteria will use this photosynthetic product. Photosynthetic product from this host. Then and also it will started to fix the nitrogen around the soil. Around the soil. This is the bacteria encounter route. For the encounter, I told you the plant need a chemical flavonoids. Flavonoids induces attraction of these bacteria towards then bending of the holes. Then trap the bacteria. Then cell division, cortical cell division, bacteria will penetrate inside and it will become a, started to induce the multiplication of the cells. You see root hairing, these bacteria associated in the rhizobium cells here. Root curling. This is another form. So the other steps I explained that in the picture, right? Explained in the picture. So this finally peribacterioid membrane, right? Peribacterioid membrane surrounding the cytoplasm of the root and the bacteria DNA, then it will work independently, right? Independently. This bacteria did work independently, endosymbiotic bacterioid. We call it as an endosymbiotic bacterioid. Then it will, for the limitation of the oxygen, they will produce leg hemoglobin that is control that area. This oxygen-free condition, but bacteria need oxygen. But for the nitrogen fixation, it's it should not be. It should be oxygen-free. Therefore, they are producing leg globin. Immediately, if there is an oxygen, leg hemoglobin trap that oxygen. Bacteria can use ammonia fixation will not be interrupted. Nitrogen fixation will not be interrupted, right? So the symbiotic nitrogen fixation bacteria are classified into two groups. One is determinate, other one is indeterminate. The fast growing bacteria we call it as a rhizobium. Slow growing bacteria we call it as a bradyrhizobium. That what is a determinate one, it's an indeterminate one, right? So this NIF and FIX gene, in the rhizobium, there are two genes are present. The NIF gene, main gene is a NIF gene. Another one is a FIX gene, right? For the bradyrhizobium encode their chromosomes. There is no any specific gene. So this they can encode the protein from their chromosomes. Mean it's like a quantitative character, not a single gene induced core formations. That's what the difference in it's a slow and fast. I determinated nodules, you see the globose. So normally in the tropical legumes you can expect. And the rhizobium, right? So rhizobium is showing the specific symbiotic. Mainly rhizobium is the bacteria mainly used for the symbiotic association than the other species. Commonly, the different species are associated with the different crops. So this is an example is showing, for example, if you are taking the bean, Rhizobium phaseole. Phaseolus vulgaris is a bean and botanical name. So that's what it is put it in the name at the back, Rhizobium phaseole. You can easily remember, right? Pia, Rhizobium leguminosarum. Leguminosarum is a common for all legumes, but Pia also here. So Sesbania. Sesbania, this normally it's there in Sesbania associated bacteria is an Azorhizobium. It's called an Azorhizobium colinodans. We call it as an Azorhizobium colinodans, Clover Rhizobium trifoli, and different crops, Bradyrhizobium japonicum in soybean, right? So different species it has been identified because due to the extensive studies, these are important organisms. That's what every country scientists extensively studies. Now with the biotechnological tools, they extensively even studied mainly sequence because they need that gene and transfer the gene into the other non-symbiotic crops. So then they can easily fix that nitrogen. This is an association and examples. Then this is an advance on gene concept, how it is gene induced and working. I'm skipping this one. So because if you won't read, you can read it. It will be there in the record, but I will not explain. Right? I will not explain how it is working. For your state, it's not needed much about this gene explanation. Right? So host plant role for the nodulation. What are the host plant role is? They are giving flavonoids as a root exudates. They have the node genes present in there in the plant. We call it as a nodulin. It's a chemical, right? Encoded by a gene present in the legume plants. And also they are not showing the defense against this organism. Host defense genes are not activated. If it is host defense gene is activated, if these plants are considering this bacteria as a pathogen, definitely this host defense gene will be activated, then there is no any association. So therefore, for the nodule formation, successful symbiotic relationship, the plant side, these three helps are giving to the bacteria. But what are the extensive studies now it is going here? Enhancing survival of nodule forming bacterium by improving the competitiveness of inoculant strains. So normally in many barren lands, these bacteria, symbiotic bacteria, you cannot expect, or even new crop, new land, you cannot expect. Every time you need to dip while you are going to cultivate or seed dipping or seed dredging of this bacteria before showing that seeds in the new lands, right? So their target is to association for this through the gene technology, how they can modify the gene of the crop and quickly associate it with that non-leguminous crops, and also increase the survival rate of these microorganism by silencing this unwanted gene and inducing the effective gene. This way, these studies are going on. If you have any time or if you want to read more about this, you are interested, you can go and read many papers. So this is the next section of the next application. We call it as an biofertilizers concept. So concept of biofertilizers. So microorganisms. So we are now, earlier we studied biological nitrogen fixation because nitrogen is important for our crops. It's a major element, right? But microorganism we can use many, especially bacteria. That's what I took this one as a bacteria in the bacterial side. Other mycorrhizae I will take after the completion of the fungi. So biofertilizer means, so we are going to use these microbes, especially the bacteria, beneficial bacteria, for the fixation of these nitrogen and other elements, phosphorus and sulfur and iron. Only fixation can happen for nitrogen. So others we cannot fix it. But because from the solubilization of mobilization of other nutrients, nitrogen only can fix it. But solubilization and mobilization of the other nutrition, so we can use this bacteria. For example, in the Pavala, you can expect so tremendous amount of rock phosphate. The rock phosphate plant cannot be absorbed. If the plant want to absorb it, somebody should help to immobilize into mobilize. Who can help it? So otherwise for the human being, we should use the enzymes. But if these organisms are present, certain microorganisms, they can produce enzymes, this is natural enzyme, then they can mobile it into immobile to mobile forms. This is a multifarious advantages of the biofertilizers lead to for the sustainable agriculture. We are promoting now sustainable agriculture to minimize the input. Right, minimize the input from this industrial production or artificial products. How much of natural way we can manipulate our agriculture, we can use it. That's what we are expecting, right? So the biofertilizer concept started before 300 BC, right? So for the nitrogen fixation, phosphorus solubilization, and phosphorus mobilization, potash solubilization, with some of the micronutrient transformation, copper and iron and cobalt transformation, we used, other than these rhizobium bacteria, we used certain other bacterial groups. For example, you can see here, so right, this is the biofertilizer for the legume fixation, and phosphate solubilizing bacteria, mycorrhiza here, that I think is first, right? Rhizobium and acetobacter, phosphate solubilizing bacteria, other than the arbuscular mycorrhiza, and azospirillum and blue-green alga. These, if you can able to induce its mass multiplication or mass production and application in the field, so they can easily mobilize, solubilize, fix whatever the major element, NPK, mainly NPK, needed for the plants, right? So if you are applying these biofertilizers, so they can able to renew the sources of nutrition. But normally we are applying an organic amendment. In the organic amendments, these nutrients are in different forms. For example, nitrogen will be there in the protein. If this protein degrading bacteria is working, then it will convert it in the proteins into ammonia, right? So that's what I told you, for the different components and nutrition will be present in organic amendments. Then these organic amendments sustain the soil health. Told you, if you are adding these beneficial microorganism population, if it is very high in the soil, your soil will become a suppressive soil. Suppressive soil means it will suppress a harmful microorganism, pathogen, soil-borne pathogen, Pythium, Phytophthora, and of these other things. And also these amendments, these biofertilizers can induce proliferation of these Acetobacter, Lactobacter, Pseudomonas fluorescens, right? And Rhizobium, of different species of Rhizobium, and different beneficial species of Trichoderma, different beneficial species of Bacillus. These beneficial microorganisms commonly we are considering as a biofertilizer, because if we are adding organic matter, these will easily degrade these organic amendments into conversion, right? Converting into other forms that can be absorbable. Second thing, they are producing this enzyme for the degradation can kill this pathogenic microorganism in 3 different ways, and we will study later. These biofertilizers, it is important in it can able to replace 30 to 25 to 30% of the chemical fertilizer. We can minimize it. We also supplement, and the CO1 ratio is very high. But for the ammonia, means CO1 ratio is not. So ammonia will be high, hydrogen will be high. For the plant, CO1 ratio is nearly CO1 ratio should be an optimum condition. Otherwise, it cannot be absorbable. Right? It cannot be absorbable. Then this one can increase the texture, structure, and water holding capacity of the soil, and stimulate the plant growth by the secreting growth hormones. It will, because root exudate will be very high. If you're adding that biofertilizers, mainly organic and biofertilizer we are talking about. So normal biofertilizers, we are mass multiplying, we are applying. Once we are applying that one, we are considering this as an organic amendments, right? So whatever the benefits from the organic amendments, we are getting directly from this biofertilizer. That's what in everywhere nowadays they started in farmers cultivated in azospirillum, right? Even in the paddy farmers, so in the live paddy cultivation, they are started to cultivate the azospirillum, Anabina, right? And phosphate solubilizing bacteria, mycorrhiza, they are root inoculating the phosphate solubilizing bacteria, especially the mycorrhizas. So they can able to easily mobile form to mobile form, then plant can easily absorb. And you can even minimize the pollution and the cost, and you can maintain the healthy agri system. And finally, your earth will be healthy. So these are the organisms commonly used for the mass culturing, and nowadays for inoculation and mass multiplication and the application of these biofertilizers. Organisms for the biofertilizer production are highly useful. Now we are promoting. Right? Promoting, even government also thinking to promote, because there is higher demand for organic products, and time to time report of these damages of the earth and pollutions and the human health hazardous nature. So that is an end of the section, and we will continue with kingdom fungi in the next class. I am stopping here with, if you have any questions, you can ask any questions.